And welcome back to Charging Stack, where we talk to the people building and shaping the future of mobility. Today, we're joined by Paul Roberts, founder of Buck City Biker, an independent media platform covering electric motorcycles, tech, and industry shifts, with a strong focus on what riders actually need to know. Paul, it's great to have you here. We're going to have an awesome chat. I can't wait to hear everything about Buck City Biker.
Thank you so much for inviting me on to your awesome podcast. It's a real pleasure to be here. Let's do it.
Likewise. Let's go. I would like to just start to kind of introduce our audience with Buck City Biker. What kind of pushed you to start the platform such as Buck City Biker in the first place?
What pushed me to start it, did you say?
Yeah.
Sure. So I'm a biker, have been since around 1999, and I discovered electric motorcycles probably a bit late into the scene in 2022, and I wanted to absorb information about the E-Moto scene, and there wasn't really a place where you can find much information, certainly in one location. And of course, I'm going to all the different brand websites and reading their press releases, and it was a lot of work. So this made me think of the idea, well, this is clearly something that's needed. It's something that I'm really passionate about. So we set up the news platform and Buck City Biker, which at the point was kind of importing bikes into the UK and helping people find access to E-Moto, switched into a solely news platform.
Awesome. Super cool. We love to see, someone doing at least remotely close to what we are doing. It's always good to see your
Well, exactly.
colleagues
Yeah, we're in the same field, aren't we?
in the same, yeah, and it's so cool because, and as we talked kind of off camera, it is still, I mean, there is a lot of medias out there covering what we cover, but not as niche as I feel like as we are, and it's very important to spread that voice, and especially for you, as we talked before, just like being there for the future riders of EV motorcycles, prepare them, maybe like get rid of some stigma they maybe have, some questions they maybe are having, and etc. So you kind of described it as electric motorcycle news with a voice, kind of. What does that mean in practice?
Yeah, good question. Well, firstly, I should say that we are solely two wheels and solely electric. So we're not doing small micro vehicles or anything like that. We're not doing trikes. We do occasionally cover quads, and that's because I grew up on a farm. But yeah, two wheels, electric only. And as you said, yeah, we're really there for the riders. So we're trying to ask the questions to the people we interview that the riders want asking, and we're trying to answer those questions to the riders in every piece that we do. So, I mean, if you look at our subscribers list, there are emails in there from industry professionals, and that's cool. We're so pleased to have them on board. But fundamentally, we're about the bikers and the buyers. Um, about the voice, yeah, I mean, it's just boring rewriting press releases, right? And we've got opinions on why this might be good and why this might be bad, and what that means for the sector or the company or for buyers if they're trying to buy the machine. So we always, from the beginning, had this opinion kind of baked in to our articles, and that's where with the voice comes along. So we're not neutral. We have an opinion, and if some of our readers might not agree with those, and that's absolutely fine. What we're there to do is show them the opinions and show them the different options that they have. And yeah, we're a short form written. I mean, we're not post length, but most of our output is a 2-minute read. We
Hmm.
want people to go on, have a quick idea of that story. And we do extended pieces, interviews with some of the founders and the people really shaping the industry, a bit like you do.
Yeah.
And those are longer written forms. So they're like 1,000 words up to 5-6 minute reads.
Yeah, I mean that's perfect what you said, when it comes to having a shorter form content, because as we know, attention span is just getting drastically and drastically smaller. But also what you
Uh-huh.
said a bit about having an opinion, that's also what we are trying to do. And I feel like what everybody wants is for you to not to have a bland piece of content, to have, something that actually valuable, because there's a lot of BS around, the internet right now when it comes to, again, written content and video content of just, providing no actual human opinion. Okay, this is actually for someone, this is not for you. This might be for you, but in certain situations or life. Uh, uh, so what makes a good story? What would you say right now in electric motorcycles today?
Yeah, sure. I think, it's a real emerging market, right? It's still really young. And lots of readers that are coming to us, we get new readers join us each week. And some of them are people who are like, what? Electric motorcycles? That's fucking awesome. Sorry, that's freaking awesome. You can edit me.
No,
Um,
it's fine.
and so they can jump on our website and without clicking on anything, they can, just by looking at the pictures, they can get a feel for what is out there and what's happening. What makes a good story? So when we're looking at those readers, for me, I love the stories about the bikes. Here's a new bike. What does it represent? What does it mean? Who's making it? Where can we get it? That's my favorite type of story because we can look at the products, we can say whether we like them, what we think works, what we think doesn't. That's my favorite kind of story. I think it's probably most relevant to our reader. Um, but there's got to be tension. As journalists, there's got to be a bit of tension in the story. We've been covering Damon motorcycles for years. And we've interviewed Dom Kwong when he was CEO of Damon. We've interviewed Jay Giro after he left Damon. So it's a big story for us. And of course, we covered it when they all quit. and
Mm,
the company, who knows what's happening now?
yeah.
So we try and build that tension in there, that question, what's next? What's going on? Is this good for Damon or bad for Damon? Uh, so some stories don't have a lot of tension. And so we either build it in or we leave them, put them on the bottom of the pile, you know. So for us, it's about what does the rider want to see? If I'm a biker, I'm out there. I think wonder what's available, what's going on in the E-Moto world, and that's what I want people to see when they jump on our platform. Is this relevant to me? Yes, yes, great. Maybe not. Oh yeah, okay. I've heard of them. I haven't heard of them. And suddenly you've got a bigger picture of what's going on. That's kind of our mission.
Perfect. Sounds like a totally reasonable thing to do. I wanted to ask you because we do share the similar thing, because we talk to a lot of founders, because there's a lot of brands out there, especially EV motorcycles, who are just built in someone's garage and then they grew up eventually. They're not all
Sure.
huge companies. Most of them are small. We had a Grid we had a great EV motorcycle brand called Grid recently show, and they started as they're like just two guys who build bikes, and now they're scaling. We had BBM, also two brothers building. So is there like a pattern you kind of see from the founders of these brands? Is there something that they kind of share? I mean, because it's always interesting to me to see, can we actually spot like the early signs of the company that's going to actually make it, or that's just going to end up as a startup who's not going to make it actually. So I
Yeah.
always, when I talk to my colleague, is it purely the passion? Someone needs to have the passion to finalize it, or is it much more? Of course, it's much more. But for interesting thing, we had when we had a BBM, so they live in Hong Kong for the last 25 years, and now they're moving
Mhm.
to Spain very soon because they will be selling their bikes in Europe. And they were just telling us the craziest stories about how it is so much easier. I mean, easier in a sense to build something in Hong Kong because you have the factory 500 meters from your office.
Yeah.
This factory, this distributor, you need a like a 3D model part made tomorrow. You got it. They answer to
Yeah.
your emails tomorrow. So this is
Yeah.
just an example of. I mean, to me, they sound very promising just by the fact that they were in that environment of that space.
Yeah.
So what's your opinion on that? Do you have an opinion on that?
I mean, it's really hard and dangerous to predict which brands are going to make it and which ones aren't, because it's a cutthroat industry and anything can happen. I do love what the guys at BBM are doing. And I saw your interview, and we've been covering their bike, the Hero, isn't it, for quite a
Yeah.
while. Um, there is some patterns that are emerging, I think, because it's a young industry and everyone's trying to work out whether they follow the old rules or make up their own ones. But I have noticed that of the E-Moto startups, they are run by CEOs who are passionate about biking. They're CEOs who love motorbikes. They're not just there jumping into the E-Moto world because there's money to be made. You know, these guys are passionate about motorbiking and that's what they do. And that is a pattern. Of course, you have the live wires and the zeros and the big players as well, and they produce fantastic bikes. But there is this pattern in these emerging E-Moto brands that is that. I'll tell you something else I've noticed. A lot of the E-Moto brands are doing founder investment circles. What I mean by that is they get to a point where they're ready for production and they need to raise funds for production. And they're asking their fans and buyers to fund that by putting down their deposit and taking a stake in the company. And it's really interesting because it's refundable. As a depositor, you get to buy into something you really believe in. Doesn't always work, but that's a pattern I've seen. And I think it's a really nice way for bikers and riders basically to get into the industry because it's not just parting with your money. You're parting with your money and saying, I'm part of that team now. Grit did that. I can't remember if BVM did that, but that's a pattern I've seen in these startups. Raising money directly from your fans and your buyers. Great.
Very cool. Do you have like a, maybe we're kind of jumping from topic, but doesn't matter. Do you have like a favorite emerging, like a brand new brand that just came out, EV motorcycle brand that you have your eye on, and you're like, okay, this might be something.
What one to watch? Mm.
Yeah, it's fun
Um,
to out. Yeah,
yeah, sure. Well, I mean, Avenra have just launched in the UK. They're targeting Europe, in Italy and France this year, and next year they want to do the whole of Europe. You know, they've got a really simple product, but what they've done right is it looks like a classic race bike, and it's got an absolute heat load power. And because of those two things, they've absolutely nailed it. So their launch at the moment in the UK seems to be going really well. So yeah, them. I'm always been a huge fan of DAB motors.
mm,
Um, DAB1 is such a beautiful bike, and you never know what collab they're going to do next. They've just done one with Brabus, you know, they've done Ferrari and Porsche and all the big kind of high end names. So it's always exciting watching them. Um,
mm.
but in terms of one to watch, I mean, my job is to watch all of them and then wait until something happens. And like I said, it's really hard to predict. But as a sector in the whole, there's so many to watch right now.
Yeah,
Um, you probably found the same. When we first started this, it was hard trying to find stories. You know, we were digging
yeah,
through, trying to find what can we write about. Now it's a
yeah.
nightmare. They come through thick and fast, and you have to choose which ones you aren't going to write.
Yes, now we need to hire more people to our teams because it's just getting out of control. Just how many of them are just, appearing out of nowhere, just spawning out of nowhere. Especially we have a even bigger problem because we cover even broader spectrum
Yes, you do, don't you?
of vehicles. So it is kind of hard, but it's exciting. What's I mean, it's awesome what's happening because I feel like it's easier than ever to build something, but I feel like now it's a big competition of who's going to brand itself. I feel like the marketing part is kind of that's maybe where we
Yeah, totally.
Europeans kind of lack in a comparison to Americans. I feel like because we talked a lot about builders in Europe and people investors, and they always say Europeans they can engineer very good. They spend all their money to R&D and they build an awesome product, but then they have a final product but nobody's ever heard about. No branding
Mhm.
haven't been done. And sometimes I feel like Americans, they have like a basic concept of an idea. They create a 3D render, they splash a ton of money in marketing, and then they actually build it in the meantime. So it is kind of
Yeah.
interesting opposite. Yeah, so
That's really interesting that you've noticed that actually. And of course, in Europe, there's so much red tape that anything costs so much. The perfect mix for me would be a kind of European West, Western, say European USA based company who are doing manufacturing in China. You know,
Yeah.
China has been the world's manufacturer for decades, and that's why they're so good at it. They can iterate fast, they can change and improve moldings, designs, systems fast, because that's what they do really well. And so, as you were saying earlier about the BBM brothers, they've been based in Hong Kong. What an experience that must have been to have such quick iteration on ideas and concepts and prototypes, as you said. And, you know, we're making a prototype, um, just some, not for Buck City Biker, it's something we're doing in the back of the shed. It's a new display bracket for one of our bikes. Simple, right? We've been through 35 different versions of it with
Yeah.
our friend down in the village who's got a 3D printer.
Yeah.
So I know how hard it is. You know?
And yeah, yeah, they have like so many stories of just how easy it is, you know, how fast it is. Also, I think I mean, the working culture is also, they were saying, okay, they need something, they send an email, they get a response tomorrow morning, you know.
Yeah,
There's not a meeting for a meeting. There's like, okay, you want this? You got the money? Let's get it done. You know, you have the specs? Let's go. And
absolutely. Yeah, love it.
that's I feel like still, I feel like Europeans do potentially the best designed vehicles ever. We have that, you know, Italian design, you know, even
Yeah,
British, yeah, of course. Just recognized around the globe, and I love especially how, for example, Maywing looks. Maywing to me looks very interesting. I love their bikes. I've tried their bikes in Lyon, and maybe they're not the most packed out there when it comes to having the best range and the best tech, but I just like how vintage they're looking, and you know,
yeah.
incorporating the EV and the retro look, the retro British green and everything. It's very, very nice to me.
It's such a cool bike. The Maving, you know, it gets a lot of um uh uh gets a lot of people saying it hasn't got enough power or range, right? It's a
Yeah, it's so
commuter,
slow. It's like,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, and what Maving have done with that bike, whether you like it or not, kind of irrelevant, because what they've done is they've created a bike that makes people want to start motorcycling
Yeah.
because they think it looks so cool with its EV inspired retro figure. You know, they want to become motorcyclists so they can
Yeah.
ride the mountain bike. Now
Yeah.
that is really important for the industry.
Yeah, it's such a good entry point, you know. Actually, I mean, most of us don't need crazy power, especially for
No,
this, you know, if you're living in a city. What Maven is offering is plenty. It's plenty for you know, like a beginner, and it's a great way for actually to start, you know, to enter the EV bike industry, to start your journey as a rider. I think it's awesome, and you're having something stylish. I think it also fits someone who is maybe older and they want something slower purposely, but they want to keep that, you know, old charm. But also someone who is young and just wanting, you know, still be safe and
yeah,
uh,
I think, and Maving, you know, in 2025, I believe their US sales topped their UK sales last year. And they're obviously doing a big push into the US now with the 8 million funding they got a few months ago. Um, and that British thing you're talking about goes down great in America. They love that. They love
yeah,
this old classic British looking bike, and they do in the UK as well. So, yeah, hats off to them, really. They've done great, they have. And of course, they've been there since 2018, defining the segment. So,
yeah,
you know, because they've been there so long, now Maving are the ones to beat if you want to be in that light commuter retro style segment. Maving are the ones to
yeah,
beat.
yeah. Have you tried their bikes? Have you rode their
Sorry,
bikes? You tried their
sorry.
bikes before?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. My friend had one actually, and he brought it round. I want to go down to Coventry, but I just don't have any time. You know?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
plan to go to Coventry this year and say hi to the guys and do a proper test ride. But my friend brought one round. It's easy to ride. I mean, it's a retro inspired 125. Lovely. You know, if you want to park outside a cafe or do the shopping or go to work, it's going to answer those problems for you. Um, if you don't mind, I'd like to jump back to something you said earlier about
yeah.
the
Please.
industry. Yeah, sure. And how, you know, we're trying to break this impression or preconception of E-Motos, um, that's primarily coming from ice bikers. And that's fine. Bikers are a passionate people. They ride because they ride. It's not in the West. It's not at all. We don't ride because we can't afford a car and we need to get to work. We might, but that's not really the scene anymore. Back in the '60s, sure. So in the West, people ride because they want to ride. And so they're passionate. And so if you've been riding ice bikes your whole life, you're going to be weary of an EV. You're going to be saying, what about range and all that stuff? Of course, in Asia, it's different. They're tools. People are on bikes because they can't afford a car and it gets them to
Yeah,
work on
that's
time.
totally
And
different.
they prefer a car because it's got a roof and they don't get wet. So is it about breaking old kind of sentimentalities, which I think it is a little bit, as you said. But in my experience, guys who hate guys who hate EV, once they've ridden one, they do tend to change their mind because there's just so much torque available. They're like, okay, I'll give up the, exhaust noise because
Mm,
I can have twice as much torque.
yeah. I think that's why the shows and fairs are important because when somebody, you just need to get people on these bikes. Just try it. Just give it a shot. Just try it, see what you think. You know, sleep on
Yeah,
it. You don't have to
and
buy it
we're
tomorrow.
yeah, 100. You're absolutely right, Marin. And also, the industry is at this interesting point now where battery technology is now good enough. Okay. It's not widely
Yeah,
available yet. I can't go down and pick a 200-kilometer range bike up just yet. They do exist, but it's not widespread. But the battery technology is there. If you look at what BYD are doing in their cars with their blade technology and donut battery, and as Donut Battery are bringing out this all these claims with their new solid state battery, and some of the world are saying it's all vaporware. There's other battery manufacturers in the industry who are also claiming 5-minute charge times with their lithium. So we're at this point where battery technology has got better, and it won't be long
absolutely.
before it's everywhere. And then range becomes obsolete, charging becomes obsolete. It basically becomes a better vehicle, except it doesn't have an exhaust.
Yeah, absolutely. And then
I mean,
more.
that's my personal opinion.
No, I agree. No, I totally agree with you. At the end of the day, it is a better technology. It is a better technology. Less moving parts. It's the whole concept is just better. What are your thoughts as a journalist, as an EV bike journalist, on Donut Lab? I know it's controversial. I'm personally a bit confused right now. I don't know what's going on. I just saw the latest video a couple of days ago. Any info, any insider information you can share, you're allowed to share. You probably talk to them.
I mean, yeah. I mean, at Buck City Biker, we're believers currently. We're not the kind of guys to call
You
vaporware
do
just because
believe.
they've said something that is difficult to believe. Seems to me that a company that are doing quite well with their Halo motorcycle, the Verge TS Pro, Verge and Donut obviously are sister companies and tightly related, but they are separate companies. It does seem weird how a company would get as successful as they have been and then make up a load of lies. That doesn't make any sense. You would ruin your business that you've worked so hard to build. So for me, I'm like, okay, if they say it, great. They've proved most of them, most of the claims. There's going to be non-believers, but let's make one thing clear: Donut are controlling the narrative here.
Yeah,
Right? They're drip
absolutely.
feeding us with these videos. They're letting the world get up in arms and saying it's all baby.
Absolutely.
So they're totally owning it, and they're doing a great job. And it helps us because we've got at least one story a week from them at the moment. So,
Uh, yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying. They're doing the right thing. They're doing kind of the American way. They're building while they're branding, you know?
uh,
So they
yeah,
create a huge content push while things haven't been kind of, fully developed yet or commercially used, but they create a whole just a projection of the how how it's going to look when it's like fully applicable and everything is tested and fully developed. I mean, props to
yeah,
them.
and
I'm very excited. I'm very excited for what they have to say in the future and
super,
offer.
super excited. If that battery comes out, I want one in my bike. Donut Lab in Europe, we've heard of them. We know they developed the hubless wheel. So, but in the US, they've never heard of them. And then this company comes out called Donut, And the people in the US are like, what a load of rubbish. That's part of the reason they don't believe it. Um, but hey, look, we're believers. And also, while we all argue about whether it's true or not, Verge are already dropping off TS Pros with the new battery. So it's like they're a step ahead of us already.
Yeah, have you had time to, ride that bike? Is that bike out?
No,
Is that
I
no?
haven't. No, I'm very keen to. I haven't been on the TS Pro. Really, really excited to get my leg over that one.
Yeah, and then maybe a question following up on this. So, kind of in this space full of hype and announcements, how do you build trust with your audience? What do you cover in what way? So you're just not a clickbait portal of news when it comes to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you're right. And it's really important because I could have built an algorithm that would pull in information and quickly write news with AI and just pump it out every day. It would it wouldn't be very good. And it wouldn't have a true rider's perspective and a rider's opinion on what that happens. I think for us, we obviously are journalists and we're here to report what's going on. So if a company are saying claims, for example, then we will report that. And then we'll say, but, you know, we'll ask that question around those claims, what they could mean, but we won't solely just say this is true. We'll say they're claiming this. Um, so really for us, it's quite difficult to be neutral and be opinionated.
Yeah,
uh, um, but I think we carry it off quite well. The opinion is about what does this mean for riders. Being neutral is about not taking sides. So I think that as long as you're asked for us, as long as we're asking the questions that riders care about, then they keep coming back. I think if we were to start being a bit more founder talk and all that kind of stuff, we might lose some of our readers because they're really there about for the bikes. They're there for the bikes and the info and the tech and all that stuff. So yeah,
what does like a average driver actually care about the most? I would just say, is there like a maybe like a top three things? It's like, the queries about EV bikes. There was something they're looking for.
yeah. When we used to import e-bikes from China and supply them to people in the UK and the US because back when the market was younger and they didn't have any access. So we were helping them do that. And the queries we got were all sorts. What's the fastest bike? Lots of people have got this top speed thing. They want the fastest
Yeah.
bike. And then you've got the commuters, which don't care about that. They want something that's easy to handle, lightweight, easy to charge, not necessarily quick because they're going to charge it overnight at their home. So as long as it's got enough charge for the day. Um, as because it's an emerging sector, I guess you've got people who are thinking, I might buy an electric bike. What is it that I can buy? What is there available to me? So I think that's probably because of the age of the sector. As it matures, I mean, it's the same. Bikers, I mean, I'm always looking at what's the next bike. you know, Even though I love my bike, I'm always thinking, oh, I'll get one of them next. So it's just really
Yeah, yeah,
interesting to
yeah.
see what's out there.
Yeah, it's just like I feel like it's the same with just scrolling the used bike or car markets just for the fun of it. There's always
Yeah,
that part. So if you just drink your coffee or tea and just scrolling and because it's your
window
passion at the end of
shopping.
the day. Yes, exactly.
Window shopping. Yeah.
Exactly. Do you have like a okay? We kind of touched base with with the top speed fixation some people have. Is there one more like overrated spec when it comes to EV motorcycles, in your opinion? Maybe the people,
Overrated spec.
hmm
What
like
do
a
you
zero to
mean? Could you give me an
60,
example?
0 to 60, charge time, range, top speed.
Gotcha. So stuff that's given too much weight on the spec sheet that doesn't really matter. I get you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think that what's happening right now is the E-Moto scene is finding its different segments, just like the moto scene has. You've got race, you've got commuter, adventure, whatever, scooters and whatnot. And so the language is different in each of those. Yeah, in the commuter section, it's all about range. Um, For me, I think the most overused spec in the commuter section is charging, because no one cares because they're charging it at home overnight, right? That's where you win with EVs. If you're at the charge station, you're going to pay almost as much as petrol, and it'll be
Hmm.
slower. But if you're charging overnight, you don't care how long it takes. And 95% of commuters, they're charging overnight at home. And so all this talk about charge time, they honestly don't care, because they get home, plug it in, it's full tank of fuel in the morning, you know.
Ah, that's
And
interesting
not,
because
not,
Guillaume Benoit said a completely different thing. They were saying when I asked them, "What do you think is more important, range or charging time?" They say they would much rather have a small battery that charges fast and have a big range.
I think it depends on use case, right? So when you look at cars, my cousin drives all over the country every day. For him, an EV, unless it's proper top spec, it's not going to be
Doesn't make
useful.
sense.
So it's too much time charging, you know. Whereas me, we've got an EV that we use as a house car. We've been on trips with it, and you have to stop halfway and charge. But generally, it's full every day. We charge overnight. So yeah, it's a really interesting thing, isn't it? Really interesting that you heard that from someone else. I mean, for me, when it comes to range, what am I using the bike for? What am I going to do in the day? That's how much range I need. That's basically it. And at the moment, 5 years down the line, there's going to be much better batteries anyway. So you can always swap it out.
Absolutely,
That's my thought.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, yeah, my only question is how does the bike handle when it comes to, having a big bulky battery and then having a smaller one that's more like agile when it comes to charging time? So I don't know,
Yeah, it's a
but
good.
I mean, I also have an EV back home, BMW i3, and we charge it, just by overnight. I pretty much never charge it on the DC chargers and pay whatever fees. I don't even know how much they're charging right now in Croatia because I never charge. Because yeah,
Yeah,
it's a second car in the house, which then makes more sense to have a EV.
I totally hear you. Yeah, I think in the UK, if you go to the service station on the motorway, you're looking at 62p a kilowatt. The Tesla charges 6p a kilowatt. So if you can use them, always much better. Um,
Oh, that's good.
and overnight, I pay on most EV owners have a cheaper overnight rate, right? So overnight
Yeah,
we
yeah,
pay, I think it's 4p a kilowatt to charge the car. The bike, I don't even count because it's much smaller battery.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
batteries are heavy, right? And especially on a bike where balance and maneuverability is everything. You've got to balance that weight with range. Batteries are getting lighter, so that's good. But still, I mean, I test rode the Evo a couple of weeks ago. That's got an 11.5 kilowatt hour battery in it. It's a hunk of a thing. Um, Whole bike weighs 175 kilos. I think a 600cc race bike weighs about say a bit more, I think, on an ice bike. So it's comparable, I
mm.
think. And of course, if
But
you
is there
swing
like
that
something?
battery really low, if you put the battery really
Yeah,
low, it helps anyway.
yeah. Is there any other? Okay, we kind of know discuss the whole battery thing and charging. Kind of, is there other trend in the whole EV motorcycle world you're kind of focusing on? Is there something that's except that?
Yeah, I personally think there are people developing batteries and developing motors and developing controllers. But really, that's kind of covered. If you're building a bike, unless you're going full proprietary hardware, you're going to be buying in those elements anyway. Um, I think, to be honest, in terms of something really simple, motorcycle shape, the
Hmm.
designs of the bikes, that's where people are finding their feet right now, because the classic looking bikes are selling better. But at the same time, the industry is trying to move away from, old ice habits and redefine a new concept. You've got to do both, of course. Um, but yeah, so it's a really interesting out there. When a new bike comes out, the first thing I think is, what does it look like? God, it looks awful. Or wow, that looks amazing. Or oh yeah, okay, they've copied an ice bike. But, there's all these different approaches. That's really interesting for me because it should define itself more over the next few years. And I think we'll see regular shapes. But something that was interesting, actually, I when I was chatting to Jay Giraud, and this wasn't in our interview because it was kind of off topic, but he was telling me about the batteries used in several of the big brand bikes, the BMW CO4, I think it's called, those bikes. And fundamentally, the design of those bikes is because of the battery they've got in them.
Mm.
So in the BMW, it's a big square block battery that comes out of much larger, I think it's ships or trains or something. And so they've designed the bike around this battery, right? Which is why it looks like a rectangle. Um, and it's amazing how much the battery defines the shape of the bike. That's really what I was saying.
Yeah, that's what also Benoit and Guillaume from BBM said. I asked them, what's the hardest thing to make pretty on an EV bike? And they said the battery cover. It is very hard
Yeah.
to make it look good, in their opinion, what they said. But
Yeah, it's like,
I think they got it quite good. I like that. I like how their bikes look.
yeah, it's some people cover it up because let's face it, it's a steel box. Some people
Mm,
make it monocoque and part of the structure of the bike, so they reduce weight in the frame. Some people, like the Flying Flea, has got fins on it, cooling fins. I think that looks cool, right? If you're going to build a battery and it needs to be kept cool, put cooling fins on it. That looks so cool. Um, and it's basic, mechanical, no electronics needed. But yeah, I suppose when you're designing a bike, you have to decide what you're going to do with the battery. I'll tell you who would be good to speak to: Hugo Eccles. Have you interviewed him?
no.
No, he designed the Zero XP,
Oh,
which is that stripped down, rebuilt Zero. Um, we chatted to him. We did an interview with him about how to design an electric motorcycle, basically. And he
cool.
talks a lot about trying to. What he does is he says, right, let's imagine the ice bikes never existed. They were always EV. Where would we have got to now if they had always been EV? And that's how he
Interesting.
pictures. Yeah, it's an interesting way of thinking about it.
Interesting. Very
He's
interesting.
currently doing something with Livewire as well. No one's seen it yet, but he's got this project that he's working on in his design gallery in the US somewhere. And he's rebuilding a Livewire. So the Livewire 1. So that should be pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah, definitely want to get hold of him to jump on a podcast. We are actually having a car designer next week from Italy, which is going to be very interesting. He is doing
Oh,
some kind
very
of
cool.
yeah. So that, I mean, that's going to be a different perspective, but very interesting what you said. How he sees the whole narrative of designing an EV bike. Very
Yeah,
cool.
he's like, why are we copy in his head? There's no reason to copy ice. And so on ice, you've got this big engine up front, which looks cool. You've got the wheel at the back. He's trying to imagine the EVs. I've said it already. EV. What if it was always EV? Where would we have got to now over the decades of progression of EV bikes?
Yeah,
And of course, he's an industrial designer in his background and a vehicle designer. So his bikes are pretty cutting edge in their look. Um, so yeah, but yeah, very interesting talking to him because he's also an ice biker. So
yeah.
he's got like both perspectives.
Speaking of kind of future, do you have, like, in your opinion, the category that has the most amount of potential when it comes to the adoption? Like, of
Yeah.
course, yeah, urban commuters, high performance, off road, utility. What do you think? Let's say by okay, I almost looked at the calendar to see what year it is. Let's say by 2030. That's in 4 years. Let's say that's like a round number. 2030, in your opinion, what's the category that's going to jump the most in sales?
Yeah, interesting. Look, if we're looking to the east, then I think that already we're seeing a massive influx of EV commuter bikes and cargo and utility bikes. And that's going to be huge. So in terms of pure numbers of units, I think that's probably going to win. In the West, in terms of category, I'll tell you what, I'll flip the question a bit. There's a category that hasn't been touched by EV, and that's the adventure category, right? So these
Wow.
adventure guys, they are super, super hard to please, right? They know their
Okay.
bikes. They have to trust their bikes. I mean, because they're going up mountains and whatnot, so they have to trust their machine. They've worked with it; it becomes real part of their journey, and they're hard to impress. And adventure needs robust batteries that last forever. What I would say is, I think the batteries are here now that would make that sector work, but you don't see anything. So for me, that's a segment to watch, the adventure segment. Is anyone brave enough to build an adventure bike and try and offer it to these adventure bikers who are hardcore ice? Right.
Yeah, and I get slaughtered by their reviews and just totally
Yeah. Until they
shamed.
take it on the track and it will likely thrash all the ice bikes. Um, Ben Marshall, he's got a YouTube series in the US. Sure, you know about him. He took his Livewire Del Mar, I think it was, across the Texan desert. Um, and really interesting to see what went wrong because nothing went wrong, right? It's a belt drive. There was no issues. Nothing happened. He fell off. He didn't fall off. He ran out of charge. Um, and they had to tow him a little bit, but that was bad planning. Had a stone caught in his cooling fan and he panicked for a bit until he found the stone. So that was a problem, but that was it. It just did the job. It was really, really interesting to watch that. So I recommend that to your viewers. Ben
Mm,
Marshall on YouTube. It's called Adventures on Zero, I think his name is. Ben, you owe
super
me.
interesting. Yeah, also, and that's also what we said before. That just goes in the in favor of the whole EV motorcycles because it just there's less possibility of something going wrong because there's less
Yeah,
parts. It's just
yeah. There's less moving parts. There's less little nooks and crannies for bits of rubbish to get caught in. Um, if you're air cooled, there's no coolant. I mean, simple things work best. Look at the Volkswagen Beetle. It just ran and ran and ran, little air cooled engine in the back, simply built, car for the people, obviously. And EVs have that advantage because really they're quite simple. There's a battery, a controller, and a motor, and a throttle, and off you go. Everything else is not needed, really.
yeah, and there's I want to kind of tell what you said before, like maybe 5 minutes ago. You said how like us in the West we don't actually need motorcycles. That's what we had. We had like an interesting clip from the interview with Maximilian Funk, the founder of the big EV bike festival in Germany, and he said the same thing. And the video kind of went a little viral, and because there was a lot of people that got triggered by it, from
Ah,
like India or like other parts of eastern part of the world. So
yeah.
we had to kind of explain, okay, guys, we're kind of meaning, when it comes to Western, world,
It's a
because
different world, right?
it's
If
a
you look back
different
to the
world.
60s, it's a different world. If you look back to the 60s, the cafe racer revolution, what was all that about? It was cars were expensive, but they were becoming cheaper. So families who had motorbikes and sidecars were just starting to buy cars. So meanwhile, there's an influx of secondhand bikes on the market. Everyone who's 16, 17 needs wheels. The bikes are
Yeah.
cheap. The licensing is cheap, but they get on it, they strip it, and we used to have that. It was a means of transport. But, you know, everyone can afford car. Yeah, I can buy a car for £400 now. It'd be awful, but I can buy one, you know. Um, so, yeah, cultures change. And in the West, what's interesting is companies like Benzina Zero, um, they made their name in utility bikes. They've had huge success with their Benzina Zero Uno, I think it's called. Don't quote me on that. It's a utility bike, super robust. It's worked in various different regions of the world. They've done really, really well with it. That's now, they've now linked up with Microvolt in the UK. And so
Cool.
that kind of product is coming to the UK, that low speed, inner urban area utility vehicle for
Yeah.
carrying, for getting to work, whatever. And so there is a market emerging, a stronger market emerging for that. Of course, in Southern Europe, it's similar to here in the 60s. Everyone gets a scooter when they're 16, 15, 16, 17. It's an easy ride. It's sunny out. It's great, and then they progress to cars. So you go to Spain, there's scooters lining the streets. I mean, everyone knows. And Italy or whatever.
Yeah,
So they've got much more of that original scooter culture. It's gone here in
yeah.
the UK, you know. It's too
Unfortunately, yeah,
rainy.
yeah. I mean, we also talked with he's a director of international at New New Bikes, the Chinese
Right.
company. They do.
Oh,
They also have
new, yes.
New. Yeah, he said it's actually pronounced New. So yeah,
Oh,
I
did he?
asked him.
Great. That's
Yeah,
great insight. Thank you.
yeah.
That's great.
It's New. So yeah, I asked him
It's new.
because I was confused. And then he was just explaining to me how their distribution works, which is very interesting. And because yeah, he was saying how yeah, because they're a Chinese brand and they're approaching kind of Europe as a one market, but also of course they have to differentiate because again, so different.
Yes.
But he was just explaining me how adoption goes, from south to north. Let's say if we go from Greece, from Italy, and then we jump up to Nordics, how it's so different. The whole culture of bikes are so different. And funny enough, the EV adoption in places like Greece and Italy hasn't been as fast as in the Nordics. Well, he
Interesting.
said when it comes to new. So
Right.
their
Okay.
electric scooters haven't been adopted as fast as they kind of projected in Italy and Greece compared to the northern part of Europe, which is very cool. So we're kind of seeing some disbalances, which cannot be
Mm.
explained because when I was talking to him, I would, my first guess would have been, yeah, okay, yeah, everybody in Rome drives an EV scooter of some sort. I mean, why not? And then we also had an interesting, we had a brand called Pony. They're Israeli brand, but I forgot the name of their main competitor in Europe. They're a utility bike. They're like a something in between a scooter and a bike. They have like the actual how many liters can you store? The cargo capacity is I think like a Renault Captur or like a small crossover. It's huge, and they
Yeah.
have a deals with the.
Is this the any bike or is it a different one?
Oh, it's any bike. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Perfect,
It's
perfect. You
got a
helped me.
where you'd expect the battery to be. It's got a huge storage compartment in the
Exactly.
front end. Yeah, very cool.
Exactly. Yeah, I forgot to speak with them with the biggest expert out there who knows every brand. Why am I
And
even trying to remember?
they're pitching it as a utility bike, aren't they? So that's what
Yes,
the whole
yes.
thing is on. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So what would you say utility bikes? There's so many aspects for the kind of market can take us. We don't even know. But what I wanted to say
Yeah.
with the whole new story is we kind of have an idea where something is gonna work, could work, should work, but also things don't happen in the way we project them to happen, so we'll see. Definitely an
Yeah,
interesting
absolutely.
place.
It's so hard, isn't it, to predict? And sometimes the biggest companies with the most experience completely fail,
Yeah,
and the smaller company will smash it. So really
yeah,
difficult. I think the next few years for me and for you, because we're watching this space, it's going to be really
yeah,
interesting. We'll see the kind of main players emerge, and
yeah,
then everyone else scrambling for second place. Very exciting times in the E-Moto industry.
absolutely, and we are all for it. The
Interesting what you said about the
last.
Nordic states, right? Do you think that's
Mhm.
because the Nordic states really took on e-biking as well?
I think it's because they're so open to the whole EV mindset. I think they
Got
totally
it.
switched. I
Yeah,
think they're not even thinking of buying combustion engine anything, you know.
right. Everything's
You know
electric
what I
for them.
mean? They're not mowing a lawn with with the combustion engine. I don't know.
I mean, that's great because oil's expensive right now, right?
Yeah, and
That's,
it's funny how they're, especially in Norway, how they're the biggest producer of oil in Europe, and then they totally switch to EVs,
yeah,
and they have almost 100% of the new cars. I don't know what's the stat about motorcycles, but yeah, the EV numbers are just bonkers. It's crazy.
Hmm.
But what we were talking about doesn't make sense for them, being even colder I mean, much colder than in the UK,
Yeah.
riding, buying more EV scooters than Italy, let's say,
Yeah,
is which
it's
is
strange. It's not what you'd think, is it? It's just not what you think, mainly based on weather, as you say,
yeah.
and because of the weather, there's this culture as well. And Italy, bikes were really affordable in Italy, and that's why they were there in the past. I mean, giving people a form of transport, Vespa and all that. You know, you'd think they'd be the first place to adopt a new EV bike, and EV bikes are selling well there. But
Yeah.
no, very interesting, very interesting.
Yes, yes. And I would like to now conclude this part of our podcast and kind of end it with the quick fire round,
All right.
where can I
Okay.
ask you a simple question, give me a little quicker answer to kind of finish things off. Okay, we kind of touched based on this before, but maybe you can give me a different answer, just elaborate a little bit. Most overrated trend in e-motorcycles,
Yeah.
in your
So
opinion?
with the fact that battery technology is right on the cusp, and some would argue already there, certainly it's not going to be long before wider distribution of much better batteries is available. I think probably the questions around range and charging, they will fade away. I think they are already now. Um,
Hmm.
in my experience, the people who are asking about range and charging time are the ones who may be a little less knowledgeable about the EV scene, because it's almost becoming a zero problem. It's not
Okay,
quite, but
perfect.
it's almost.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, look,
yeah,
there's like
yeah.
just that. Oh, it's quickfire, isn't it? Sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 no. Go ahead, please, 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 please. We have time.
Okay, cool. When cars became popular, there wasn't many petrol stations, right? So
Yeah.
everyone had range anxiety. Where's my nearest? I don't know where. I don't even know where to buy fuel. I've got this new car, so it's not a new problem. As infrastructure builds up, no one cares. Um, They you'd carry a separate can of fuel in your boot, right? You'd can of petrol just in case you ran out. Got me
Mhm.
thinking, could you carry a spare battery? Probably wouldn't be worth it. Then that got me thinking again. Traditionally on motorcycles, you didn't even have a fuel gauge, right? It started sputtering, you bend down, twist the tap to reserve, and then go to the nearest fuel station. Why can't we do that on electric? Why can't we code in, software in a reserve? So you go to
Mhm.
zero, and then you can press a button, and guess what? You got 10% to get you to the fuel station. Just a psychological idea. Anyway, sorry. Quick fire.
Yeah, that awesome. I really like that way of thinking, and it makes all sense. But also, the carrying an extra battery doesn't sound like okay if the battery technology if it is going to progress drastically in the next 10 years and the battery is going to get smaller and smaller and lighter and lighter. Why wouldn't you ride with an extra battery in your backpack or somewhere on the bike attached? I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. For me, I feel a little bit like if I'm carrying extra battery, why don't I just get a bigger battery on my bike? But you're right, that's not always possible. Maybe you already own the bike, but you can buy maybe a reserve battery. They could develop a product
Yeah.
that connects to multiple bikes. Just an idea.
Yeah. 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 Jump into the next one. Most underrated company or category currently.
Yeah. As I said earlier, I think a non-existent category is the adventure in
Ledger.
E-Moto. And I think that there's going to see some really, really big gains there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and also, as we've mentioned, the utility category. There seems to be a lot of demand worldwide for utility vehicles that can carry a decent load but can weave in and out of traffic on two wheels. I think that's going to be huge. I mean, it already is, but I think it's going to be much bigger. And then you've got
Mm-hmm.
the Halo bikes and the race bikes. They're going to do well. They'll do good for the industry because they look good and they inspire excitement and get people passionate. But you're probably not going to see huge numbers of them sold. Or I should say, as many numbers as the commuter and utility bikes.
Yeah, I can see that. I can say I agree. One thing you would fix about the industry tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
Look, I'm the kind of guy who wants everyone to work together, right? It never happens in business because that's not what it's about, right? Everyone's protecting their own interests and whatnot.
Of
But
course.
sometimes when I'm looking at companies and I see what they're doing and what they're having trouble with, and then I see other companies, I think, well, if these guys just got together, they'd solve each other's problems. So I'm going to say it'd be great if the industry was a little bit more open to collaboration. But I don't expect them to be because this is business. Everyone's in it to build a product and make money. And that's cool. That's totally cool. That's how we get successful products in the world. Um, but yeah, I would love to see more collaboration because I think lots of these companies can solve each other's problems.
Very pacifistic answer, I have to say. That sounds like, solving the world's peace. Was it just in the e-bike world, right?
Still answer it again.
And the last one, we have the last one. A bike or a product that genuinely surprised you. Let's say in the last 2 weeks, months, how far along can you remember something that really genuinely was like, okay, this is dope. This is so cool.
Yeah, I think the Grit product. They've got the standard road version and the scrambler, and they've also got the blackout edition or the Raider, I think they're calling it. And when I saw their bikes for the first time at ICMA in November, it was really interesting to see what they'd built because they've built something that's very unique. It's still to look at fits within the conformity of what you'd expect a motorcycle to look like. So that's great. But it's really interesting the way they've developed it. For example, the rear suspension is underneath the chassis, underneath the frame, to enable more room for battery. And I was chatting to Philip, their CFO, I believe is, about the reasons behind that. And I just think they've built what looks like a great bike. Hopefully they can get it
Mm,
through to production and to the next stage. Um, then there's companies like QJ Motor, right? They were the biggest motorcycle manufacturer in the world. They're not anymore. Um,
mm,
Came out with the OAO Pro. Beautiful looking bike. Absolutely stunning. But they only put
check
a
it out.
5 kilowatt. Yeah. They only put a 5 kilowatt motor in it because their mindset probably was, okay, this is a European targeting Europe. We'll hit that 60 mile an hour mark. Right. But they don't they got it wrong. They've not sold one unit in Europe. And they've sold loads in China. But not one unit in Europe because it was too low a power. But it is one of the
Mm.
best looking race bikes in the market. So I can't remember what the question was.
I mean, you answered it. I said the product or bike that
I can
surprised
answer
you
it.
the most. You kind of answered. Yeah, I mean, speaking of grit, we spoke to Omar. He's a co-founder. I forgot what his
Yeah.
actual role is, but he's a co-founder, and they have, as I said, you do hope they actually make it into scale into production. They're doing pretty good. I mean, he announced they're gonna have an event because they're both an ex basketball players. They're gonna host the event in London in collaboration with NBA. They're gonna do some kind of an event. So we got invited.
Yes.
I don't know if we're gonna be able to go. I would love to go.
Hey,
But
if you
it
go,
just
then I'll probably be there. So I'll see you. Yeah, really excited for this event in London. They're also considering production in the UK, which
wow.
could be a really strong move for them because globally that still sounds good. Built in the UK, um, they seem to be doing everything right, and I like the bike. So and the guys seem really cool as well. So 3 out of 3 for me.
Yeah, they told me they desperately want to get away from Germany. I mean, I think they kind of it was just like a story. They kind of started and then had to switch everything with their investors, and then they moved away from Germany. They were originally, I think, the Berlin based, and then they kind
Right.
of switched. But at the end of the day, where that doesn't really matter today where you are. But yeah, it would be cool if they switched to UK because as you said, yeah, everything well aligned. Well, Paul, we are hitting the hour mark. Thank you so much for joining us in Charting Psych. I think we could like potentially chat for an hour longer. We do have a
Carry
lot
on.
of things to go. Or I didn't even mention the likes of ultraviolets, the Indian brands arriving to the Europe because there's a lot of I mean again the Chinese everybody there's so much things to talk about and how it could impact the market and the
There's
outcomes
so much,
and
isn't there? I mean, I'd love to
yeah.
talk about ultraviolet, but if we've run out of time, we've run out of time. Look, if you ever want me to come back and dribble on more about it, then just let me know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would love to have you. And I always say it. I hope I do it soon. I just have to gather the crew. I would love to do an episode where there's many people and we kind of have like a little open chat discussion, just like go over what the industry is right now and kind of
Yeah.
brainstorm together. That's maybe we could create a collaborative experience between the brands, kind of get them on the podcast and have like, okay guys, let's chat.
Yeah,
Let's
I'd
see.
love that. Happy to get involved, mate. Absolutely. Sounds like good fun.
Yes, thank you so much, Paul. We'll stay in touch. Wishing you all the best. You're doing an awesome job. We're proud of you and we're rooting for you. Keep it up.
Thank you so much. And you guys, like the podcast is really great. So congratulations on your success.
Thanks, mate. See you in the next
Cheers,
episode. See
mate.
you sometime in the future.
Awesome. See you later.